Welcome to Title Run Sports. I'm your host, Dave Bethay, here to tell you why the Philadelphia 76ers should be very worried about Trae Young doing this to them in the 2021 playoffs. For the casual observers, they may not be aware that Trae Young has absolutely tortured the 76ers in 5 regular season matchups over the last 2 years. Young is averaging a staggering 30 points per game and nearly 10 assists against a Philadelphia defense with a reputation as being one of the best in the league. He has shot 44% from the field, and while only shooting 31.5% from 3, he's made up for that with 93% from the free throw line on 13 attempts per game and an overall plus-minus of 14 in the last 5 matchups. To put it simply, Philadelphia has had no answers for Trae Young. While the Hawks and Sixers met 3 times during the regular season, none of those matchups involved either team anywhere close to full strength. The Hawks won the initial matchup here by a score of 112-94, but the Sixers were missing several key contributors and only dressed 9 players for the game. The Sixers started a lineup of Dakota Mathias, Tyrese Maxey, Danny Green, Joel Embiid, and Mike Scott. No Ben Simmons, no Seth Curry, no Shake Milton, and no Matisse Thybulle. As you can imagine, the Hawks ran away with this game, with the score getting out of hand early in the second half, and a lot of run being given to Hawks G League players, matching the G League players that the 76ers were starting. Trae Young cruised to an easy 26 points and 8 assists in just 25 minutes, but there's not a lot else to take away from this game considering the Sixers were missing their top 5 wing players, and this game really isn't indicative of the kind of team they've been throughout the rest of the season. The second matchup from the season involved the 76ers facing the Hawks without their top 4 wing players and Trae Young as they thrashed them 127-83. The Hawks started a backcourt of Brandon Goodwin and Lou Williams that was minus 56 for the game. They would play again 2 days later in a game that was slightly more competitive. With the season series tied at 1 game apiece, the 76ers pulled off an impressive 126-104 victory against the Hawks on April 30th in the final regular season meeting. One of the biggest issues for the Hawks was the inability to keep Ben Simmons out of the lane and the inability to keep Joel Embiid from scoring at will inside. To be fair, the Hawks were extremely shorthanded again as Tony Snell and Solomon Hill started this game and played a combined 60 minutes for a total of just 9 points. The Hawks played this game without Kevin Huerter, DeAndre Hunter, Cam Reddish, and Bogdan Bogdanovic, meaning that DeAndre Hunter only played 1 game against the 76ers this season, and Bogdan Bogdanovic did not face them at all in any of the 3 matchups. And as was evident in the New York Knicks series, the presence of those 2 on the court significantly changes the Hawks' ceiling on both ends of the floor. Having said that, the reason this game is interesting is because Trae Young returned from an ankle injury and went on to score 32 points and 4 assists on just 28 minutes. One of the key takeaways in Trae's performance is watching how the 76ers matched up with him. Ben Simmons, one of the 3 finalists for Defensive Player of the Year, did not guard Trae for the majority of this series. He was either guarded by Danny Green or Matisse Thybulle when Thybulle was on the floor. This will be interesting to see if it's a strategy that the 76ers continue, considering the success Trae had in this past series against the Knicks. As you can see in several of these clips, when Atlanta runs pick and roll, Joel Embiid will drop to take away the roll man on the lob. As a result, Trae is left open for a number of the short floaters that he had great success on in the New York series. Trae also was able to draw fouls at a high level against the 76ers, shooting 13 in the last 3 matchups. Trae's 3-point percentage is only at 31.5% in the last 5 games, but that's mostly due to a 2-for-11 performance in one of the games during the 2020 season, which brought his overall percentage down. Trae has, for the most part, been very efficient and effective, and as you can see here, when he did most of his damage in the 3rd quarter of this game, he was being guarded by Danny Green, a matchup you can likely expect to see again in the playoffs. On the other end of the floor, it will be interesting to see whether Trae matches up on Seth Curry or Green, and whether he's able to hide on defense as he was for the majority of the Knicks series, where he was matched up on Reggie Bullock. Considering Trae's effectiveness in hurting Philadelphia with pick and roll, Embiid's presence will be key to determining the outcome of the series. If Embiid is out or limited, Trae Young will continue to feast off pick and roll and will be nearly impossible to stop, as he already has been against the Sixers. If Embiid plays, the Hawks face a significant mismatch, as even Capella has been unable to contain Embiid in the past. The best games from these two teams definitely come from the 2019-2020 season, as the teams played each other at relative full strength and played competitive games that came down to the buzzer or the fourth quarter on several different occasions. From the Sixers end, Joel Embiid absolutely dominated inside, getting whatever he wanted in the paint, shooting tons of free throws, and even stepping out to hit threes when Hawks big men Alex Len and Dwayne Dedmon refused to chase him. Joel Embiid was the story of this game, going for 36 points and 13 rebounds on 12 of 19 shooting, and going 10 of 10 from the free throw line. From the Hawks side, Trae Young had his worst game against the 76ers, scoring 25 points on just 7 of 20 shooting, making 9 of 10 free throws, and having 9 assists but also 7 turnovers. That 25-point mark is Trae's lowest output against the 76ers in the last 2 seasons. It's worth mentioning that this game is from October of 2019, when the Hawks were one of the worst defensive teams in the NBA, and prior to the major mid-season overhaul they did of their roster, which included the additions of Dwayne Dedmon and Clint Capella to solidify the center position. In the meantime, Tobias Harris, Al Horford, Ben Simmons, and Joel Embiid got whatever they wanted inside against the Hawks defense of Bruno Fernando and Alex Len. And while the Sixers still had good perimeter defenders in Josh Richardson and Matisse Thybulle, they have traded out Richardson for the additions of Seth Curry and Danny Green, making them equally potent on defense, but much more balanced on offense with superior outside shooting. This is why the presence of Embiid is so important. Without his presence inside of the offensive interior, the Sixers become much easier to defend, and this becomes a very winnable series for the Hawks. Beyond Capella, though, the Hawks have few options for Embiid, as you can see they end this game with John Collins giving up 3 inches and about 45 pounds trying to stop Embiid at the rim. With Embiid out, the Hawks have potential answers for the rest of the Sixers' weapons. While it would be difficult for the Hawks to survive a 30-point double-double from Embiid, it's encouraging as a Hawks fan to know that even an average game from Trae Young can make them competitive when they have a full-strength roster. The next time these two teams met, it was Trae's turn to dominate. Trae turned in a 39-point, 18-assist performance, going 18 of 20 from the free throw line. With Al Horford and Josh Richardson out, Trae absolutely tortured Matisse Thybulle, Raul Neto, and any other Sixers defender that tried to check him. Trae got anywhere he wanted at will and punished the Sixers with lobs and floaters that they had no answer for. The Hawks led this game comfortably from nearly wire to wire, finishing with the 127-117 victory. The Hawks finished with 7 players in double figures, offsetting a 31-point performance by Ben Simmons and an additional 27 from Shake Milton. One of the things evident in these highlights is the difficulty the Sixers had with high pick and roll, as Joel Embiid drops on this clip and Trae hits him with the floater. Coming back, the Sixers try to trap this pick and roll, and Trae hits Damian Jones as the roll man for an easy lob. This is going to be a problem for the Sixers moving forward in this series, as Trae has absolutely destroyed them with pick and rolls throughout the last 2 seasons. With free throw shooting such a key part of Trae's success against the Sixers, it will be interesting to see how this series is officiated. The Hawks shot the fewest free throws in the first round of the playoffs, and if they don't receive kind, fair whistles in this round, it's very hard to see them pulling this upset. When these two teams met for the final time during the 2019-2020 season, Embiid took his utter disrespect of Hawks centers to a new level. Embiid posted a massive stat line of 49 points on 17 of 24 shooting and 14 of 15 from the free throw line. He also added 14 rebounds and 3 assists. He was helped by Tobias Harris, who contributed an additional 25 points. And Embiid finished the game with an absurd plus-minus of plus 19 as the 76ers cruised to an easy win. Hawks in Trae Young added 28 points and 10 assists, continuing to baffle the Sixers with his pick-and-roll mastery, while John Collins added an additional 21 points and 9 rebounds, and DeAndre Hunter added 22 points and 7 rebounds. With that kind of output from 3 of your young stars, You would think this would be a victory for the Hawks, but the entire output for Trae Young and John Collins was matched by Embiid himself, who is simply too much for the Hawks to overcome in this game. The two biggest takeaways from these games are that the Hawks and Sixers each have an elite player that the other team absolutely cannot guard. The winner of each one of these 6 matchups in the last 2 years has been the team that simply had better help. So with Embiid's status in question heading into the playoffs, the Hawks have a great chance to pull an upset over the top-seeded Sixers. This is Dave Bethea from Title Run Sports. That's it for today. Thank you for watching.